In this video, we will add jumping to our character. So a quick recap of our current status. So this is our character. We have the third-person camera rotating around. If I press W, my character walks. If I press Shift, it runs. And also, my character rotates as I rotate my camera. But we'll start by implementing the jumping logic in our game. And for jumping, we'll have to basically apply a force to a rigid body so it goes up, and we'll do a couple of checks. So the first one, we'll check if our character is grounded, and the second check is to prevent double jumping. So if I had recently jumped, I don't want to allow my player to jump again. I want to only allow him to jump once he's back on the ground. So I'm going to open up Visual Studio again. And I'm going to start by creating the needed variables for my checks and for jumping. So I'll start with two booleans called grounded and jumping. And the first one will let me know if my character is on the ground, meaning that it can jump. And the second one will prevent my player from double jumping. And I am going to initialize these variables on start. We'll start grounded true and jumping false. Great. Next, I will have a variable called player height, which I'm going to use to do the ground checking. Another variable that I'm going to use for the ground checking is a layer mask, which I'm going to call ground mask. And that's going to be used by the raycast. Then I'll have a float called jump cooldown, which I'm going to set by default to 1, but then I'm going to set it on the editor for the proper value. Same thing for a jump force float, which is the amount of force I'm going to apply to the rigid body to make it jump. And finally, one last variable for the ground check, which is a ground buffer. Perfect. Now I'm going to get to my update function, and I'm going to, right after the check running, I'm going to check if I'm not jumping. I'm going to do a ground check. So I'm going to check if I am right now on the ground. Let's define this function, and that's where I'm going to do my raycast. So grounded equals physics dot raycast, and raycast starts at my transform dot position. The length of my raycast is going to be vector3 dot down times player height times 0.5. Since transform position is on the center of my game object, so I need to go half the height down. And I'm going to add to it my ground buffer, which is just a small small rounding variable, let's put it like that. And finally, the ground master. Something wrong here. What is wrong here? So I'm doing, all right, that's a comma. So the direction, so it starts at my position, the direction is down, the distance is player height times 0.5 plus ground buffer, and the mask is ground mask. So here I'm checking if I'm jumping. After I do that, I'm going to do an input get key down, and I'm going to use my spacebar to jump. Key code space. And if I am grounded, and if I am not jumping, so I want to prevent a double jump. So if these conditions are met, that means that I can jump. And if I'm jumping, grounded is false, jumping is true. I'm going to call a jump function, which I'm just going to define here. Leave it empty for now, just so also field doesn't give me any grief. I'm going to call a jump function. And I have another function, private void reset jump, which will allow me to jump again. Again, I'm going to create it right now just to prevent any grief from autofill. I'm going to call invoke reset jump and jump cooldown. Okay, brilliant. So just to recap, first I check if I'm grounded, and if I press the spacebar and I'm on the ground and I'm not jumping, meaning that the cooldown for another jump has passed, I will start the jump procedure, which is setting grounded to false, setting jumping to true, call the jump function, and after jump cooldown, just reset jump. And on reset jump, all I'm going to do is set jumping to false. And in the jump function, I'm going to first of all get my rigid body velocity. I'm sorry, setting my rigid body velocity to rigid body velocity x, 0f, rigid body velocity z. And I'm doing that so I'm just ensuring that when I start a new jump, I have no vertical velocity at all. This is just, just a double check. And after I do that, I'm going to add a force to my rigid body. And this force is going to be in the direction transform.up. Actually, the strength is going to be the vector tree transform.up times jump force. So just to clear up, transform.up is a 0, 1, 0 vector 3. And the force mode is going to be impulse. Okay? That should be enough for our character to jump. Let's get back to Unity and let's check. First, let's go to our player variable. And I'm going to set, first of all, the layer of my ground. So I'm going to create a new layer called ground. And pick up my plane, set it to the ground layer, go back to my player, and I'm going to adjust the new variable. So the player height, I'm going to set to 1.7. Ground mask is ground. The jump cooldown, I'm going to set it to 0.7. Jump force to 50. And ground buffer as 0.15. Let's give it a try. Let's see how it goes. Press play. My character is still walking around, it's still running, the camera is still working. What happens if I press the spacebar now? I jump. If I'm walking and I press spacebar, I jump. If I run, I press spacebar, I jump. Brilliant, it's working. Only thing that is missing is setting up the animations. And to do that, I'm going to stop my game. Go back to Visual Studio and go to my set animation function, and I'm first going to check now if I am not grounded and I'm jumping. Jumping. I'm going to set my animation.crossfade to the jump animation. And crossfade time. Otherwise, then I can use the animations that I already have the logic here for. I'm going to cut this code and move it within the else. Back to Unity. Let's press play. And there you go. Now we have the jumping animation, and if I walk in and press jump, I have the jumping animation, and if I'm running and press spacebar, I have the jumping animation again. Great. So now our character control is ready. The third person camera is ready. We'll start to implement the platform game logics.